Hello again. Many viewers will know that I've had trouble with YouTube in the past and I've been suspended on a number of occasions for falling foul of their community guidelines. I'm sure that nobody will be in the least surprised to learn that I have for years been banned by The Guardian from commenting on any of the articles in the online version of their newspaper. I fell out with them long ago. And they have very long memories. And even now I cannot comment when they see whose computer is trying to post something. Both The Guardian and YouTube, of course, have community guidelines, but it is not entirely clear what they mean by this term. The Guardian blocked me not for talking about race or COVID, but because they didn't like my views on the weather. Seriously. There was a fuss about some climate conference or other, and all the comments were urging us to abandon the use of aeroplanes and electricity and so on to save the planet. I pointed out in a very light-hearted way that this fear of the planet heating up was a fairly new one, and only 40 years ago all the scientific evidence had pointed in precisely the opposite direction. I quoted from this book, the Reader's Digest book of strange stories and amazing facts, published in 1974. Okay, I'll be the first to concede it's not a scientific source, but my comment was only a light-hearted one in any case. Where are we now? Okay, let me just read out a couple of paragraphs and see whether anybody thinks this could possibly violate anyone's community guidelines. Some scientists are convinced that the world's climate is getting colder every year, threatening a return to the conditions of the last ice age. Records going back to the 14th century show that the northern hemisphere has been cooling gradually, producing more severe winters. Since 1940, Britain has experienced 5 winters with a whole month averaging below freezing point, while there were none between 1896 and 1939. The winter of 1962-3 was the worst since 1740. Even a small drop in average temperatures, as little as a degree in some places, could put an end to cereal growing in northern areas. Marine biologists stationed at Plymouth say that increasing numbers of cold water fish, such as codling and lemon sole, are already invading the sea around Devon and Cornwall. Right, and then it goes on to say mankind's own activities may even be hastening the return of the ice, and they talk about pollution being responsible for the planet getting cooler. Now, I thought that was quite interesting and amusing, and I didn't say anything aggressive. I just posted a few quotes from that and said that people might want to consider it. Within minutes, the comment had been removed because it violated the Guardian's community guidelines, and when I tried to comment in a different way I found that I was blocked. That was a few years ago and I'm still banned. Community guidelines. This is the same reason that YouTube has banned me. What are community guidelines? Are they guidelines or rules? Let's just have a look and see what the guidelines are. Return again for the second time today to the Oxford English Dictionary. Let's have a look. A guideline. Piece of advice. Right, that's it. A guideline is advice. It's different from a rule. A rule is something that you must or must not do, and if you don't obey a rule, there are unfavourable consequences. There's no penalty for disobeying a guideline. So, what about community in this context? That's meaningless. It's just a fashionable and fuzzy sounding term which means nothing. YouTube, The Guardian, Facebook, and many other places on the internet operate rules. They don't operate guidelines, whether community guidelines or any other sort. They have rules. But they don't like to call them that. It sounds too authoritarian. Here's a question. Why do we need guidelines or rules at all when commenting on things online, when commenting on an article in The Guardian, or people comment here on my videos? Why do we need guidelines or rules to tell people what they should and shouldn't say? I wonder if anybody's thought about that. Well, you might say people would then say anything they pleased. Would that be a bad thing? I'm mentioning this because people are always moaning about having their comments deleted on this channel, and often they accuse me of doing it. It's nothing to do with me. Nothing whatever. Comments are deleted by YouTube. But wait, we surely can't scrap those rules or guidelines altogether. Suppose somebody said that they hated this or that group of people and urged viewers to drive them from their home and kill them and burn down their houses. Surely that shouldn't be allowed. The answer is that there are already perfectly adequate laws to deal with such things. If anybody commented on this channel and said something of that sort, then the 1988 Malicious Communications Act is invoked. It makes it an offence to send to another person a letter, electronic communication or article of any description which conveys a message which is indecent, grossly offensive or a threat. There we are. That covers the example above. It's against the law. It's also illegal to try to stir people up to violence under a separate law, under common law. I cannot urge people to acts of violence or against people or to destroy property. It's illegal. All that YouTube or The Guardian needs to do is forward any message of that kind to the police. They don't need their own rules as well. The existing laws are quite adequate to deal with that kind of thing. However, as we know, those community guidelines are not really about that at all. They are designed to stop people expressing opinions which are unfashionable or offend against modern belief systems. That is why YouTube will not allow free discussion of COVID, and why The Guardian forbids anybody to poke fun at the idea of climate change. Community guidelines are intended to stop people going off message and talking about things that go against the prevailing fads and fancies. They are rules which hinder free discussion and serve no other purpose than to prevent various subjects being talked about. It's all a bit odd.